Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are.
We talk about warriorship, like in a spiritual way.
Well, that's not really something I've talked about a lot. I think in the earlier stages of practice, which could last lifetimes, we think of warriorship as putting in a lot of effort. But really, the most courage comes when we have to give up our cherished ideas about ourselves and about other people. When we realize that the things that we have claimed as our own are actually holding us back. When we have to give up living through concepts, living through convictions. And when everything becomes completely fluid, and even structure is something we understand very deeply as being completely provisional and could change in an instant. That is very hard for us. We can maybe do it to a certain point, but then all of us are going to get to various red lines that we want to draw in the sand. I'm not going any further. This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is where I stake my claim. We're all going to get to those places. And those who have a really deep intuitive understanding of the nature of reality are going to move past those red lines. And then those who don't yet are going to stay there for a while until the sand shifts underneath their feet. So really, you can't imagine how thoroughgoing the relinquishment of one's signposts, one's things that you grab onto, how thoroughgoing that relinquishment is in the end. I was thinking about this, how we can hear about someone like Ma and how she lived. And she described the way that she lived with that wonderful word, kayal, improvisation. Absolute improvisation. And as she said many, many times, I never do anything other than through kayal. There's no outside of that for her. And yet, when we think of that for ourselves or our non-avatar teachers, aka me, then it becomes somewhat of a different story, right? Because now we still want our reasons, and we still want our structures, and we still want our terra firma. We still want our solid ground to stand on, of our beliefs and convictions and plans and reasons why not, and all that. Because kayal is really all it is being immersed in nature and presence and going with it wherever it goes. From afar, we can say, oh, that's so wonderful about Ma. But if we actually counter it, we're suspicious, or we don't want it for ourselves. We're suspicious of it in other people, and we don't want it for ourselves, because we're still holding on to all this stuff. This is why I was always taught, don't have a dead guru. Because it's very easy to think that you have understood how reality is and how you're on board with it all, when it's only about someone who's dead. But when it's about you or about your living teacher, then it becomes a very different story. Only in that circumstance that you get to see how things actually are for you. We're on a path of waking up. Eventually, we have to confront how things really are, not the halfway measures the halfway that we were willing to go for most of our spiritual lives, or the 3/4 of a way, eventually we realize there's only all the way. And even if we can't get there, for instance, we have karmas. These are patterns. As I've said so many times, they have momentum, which means that it's not just a question of deciding to let go of things. If that were all we had to do, was to decide to let go of something, the whole thing would be over already. We can't just do that. These patterns, we embody them, and so they have a certain life cycle. And we have to just do practice, and we have to have cooperation from wisdom for these patterns to go away. It's not even just up to us being good practitioners. I mean, being good practitioners really helps, and certainly sincerity really, really helps. Even if you're a shite practitioner, if you're really sincere and your heart is really open to God, even, being a lousy practitioner doesn't matter so much. Sincerity counts the most, I've found. You can do something, you can really slip up one moment, and the next moment you can completely yield and open your heart, and the whole thing just transforms. I've had this experience so many times. But, somewhere along the line, we realize what is actually required of us if we want to be living in reality as it is, and not with our fantasies about it. And it is absolutely thoroughgoing. We just don't get to keep all of our reservations. And this is what Swami Lakshmanji called the bitter medicine. All of our ideas of right and wrong. Whoa, giving up ideas of right and wrong. How hard is that? That's very hard. And we're not giving them up in an intellectual way. We're not giving them up because it sounds reasonable to do so, or because our teacher convinced us that it was a good thing to do, using arguments. It's because we encounter the real nature of things, and we understand that there is no right and no wrong, that there's only this livingness that has no characteristic like that. This is the bitter medicine that Swami Lakshmanji says we don't want to take that medicine at first. And so we have to have lots of structures, and we get our belief systems and all of this to kind of ease us and inch us toward that encounter with naked presence. And even having encountered that, and even really getting it, what it is, and what it requires of us to be living in that condition all the time, we still hedge our bets. We still say, "Oh, not today, not right now. I'm gonna do my more limited thing," even though we know that it is limited. Even when we thoroughly know that all of the things we used to hold dear are very limited, we still continue to do them. And, it's a mysterious process, to us anyway, because we're just collaborators. The teacher and the student and the practices and the traditions, they're all collaborating with wisdom, and they're not in charge of wisdom. Nobody is in charge of that. So, as Ma always said, you just keep doing what you're doing your practice, doing your best, and you just don't know when that moment's going to come when you do see the real nature of things. I've had many extraordinary experiences like that. Those experiences have informed my day-to-day experience, but they didn't cure me of my karmas. Right? They helped me, right? But I still have plenty of karmic patterning, right? And it's really, the more I go along, the more I realize it's not up to me, and it does give you tremendous patience, and that sense of desperation and urgency does change and or shift in some ways. Doesn't really go away entirely, but it becomes very different. And there's a sense of growing, yielding to the process, whatever it is, even though you don't really know when you might become more free to just live without all of this baggage. But that's what it's really about. It's not just for avatars, it's for us too. I don't remember what the question was, but a warriorship. So this taking, as Swami Lakshmanji says, first we have these sweets, right? But eventually we have to actually take the real medicine. And I don't know when that will happen for each of you. It's not up to me. It's not up to you. But we're using the tools that we've been given. And I hope that at least some of you have confidence enough to just stay on it and let this reality do its magic in its own time. And Sada was mentioning how I've become much softer over the years. And this is the main reason why. Because I realize so little is actually up to me. If you think it's all up to you, you push much harder.